All right, fifth grade, we are wrapping up our unit on decimals. This week you're going to be taking a test on decimals, but today we're going to be reviewing what we've learned so far. All right, let's take a first look. We're going to be reviewing what's called the associative property, okay? Now, if I have a group of decimals, and maybe I have 2 and 64 hundredths plus 2 and 2 tenths plus 4 and 8 tenths. Remember, when we add decimals, we've got them all lined up on the decimal point. We bring that decimal point straight down. And then we start adding. Well, the associative property tells me that I can take a shortcut. And that shortcut tells me I can associate numbers that I can easily add together in my head. Now, can you easily in your head add together 64, 2, and 8? Oh, it's not just 2 and 8 though, remember. Let's fill in the blank places with a 0. Can you easily add 64, 20, and 80? Not easily. But can you easily add 20 and 80? Yes, you can. What's 20 plus 80? Well, it's 100. Hey, associative property helps me to carry the 1 already. Well, what's 64 plus 0? You know that. It's just 64. I bring the 64 straight down. All right, now I can add the 1's column. 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 gets me, very good, 9. Let's go ahead and erase that red mark, telling me where my decimal place should go. All right, guys, so the associative property helped me associate the 20 and 80 to easily add that together to get 9 and 64 hundredths. All right, now let's review what we learned about decimal place value. We learned that the decimal point is very important to tell me the value of a number. We reviewed that numbers to the left of the decimal point are kind of like dollars. First is the ones place, $1, tens place, $10 bill, and hundreds place, $100 bill. Then we learned that the numbers to the right of the decimal point are like cents. Tenth place is like a dime. Hundredths place is like a penny. We learned that we call it that because there's 100 pennies in a dollar. There's 10 dimes in a dollar. And there's 10 dollars in a $10 bill, and there's $10 in a $100 bill. So let's put that into practice. If I have a number that looks like 1 and 463 thousandths, and I want a number that's where the 6th digit is 10 times greater. Greater means I have to move this way. So I need a number where there's a 6 in that tenths plot. So I can rewrite it. I could say any number really, just 1 and 643 thousandths. This 6 is now 10 times bigger because it's in the 10 spot. All right, we also reviewed and learned about expanded form. Okay, so if I have a number 562 and it's supposed to be a decimal 7 tenths, expanded form, I'd write it as 500 plus 60 plus 2 plus 0 and 7/10. That's expanded form. You learned that before, but we reviewed that in this chapter as well. We also reviewed these symbols: greater than, less than, and equal to. And we put that into practice. So if I have 7 and 7/100, is that greater than, less than, or equal to 7 and 7/10? Well, when I compare 7, that's the same. That makes me think maybe equal to. But then I go to my decimal points, I have 0 and 7. Oh, okay, I can see. 7's a lot bigger than 0. So I write this symbol. 7 and 7/100 is less than 7 and 7/10. And we also learned this week how to round. So if I have, let's say, talking about money, $12.45, should I round that up to $13 or down to $12? Well, I got to ask myself, this number directly to the right of the number I'm rounding to. Remember the rule of the magic 5, is that bigger than 5 or smaller than 5? Well, you know 4 is smaller than 5. So I round down to $12 even. All right, and one more thing we're going to review is how to add and subtract decimals. Well, we already talked about how to add decimals. That was our first example. So let's review how to subtract decimals. Well, if I have 3 and 24/100, subtract 2 and 8/10, we talked about how we need to rewrite it so they're on top of one another. First number comes on top. Do I write it like this? No, I have to line up that decimal point. So I line up the decimal point, put my 2 and 8 around it, put my subtraction bar. I bring down the decimal point in a straight line. You can draw in the line, the red line, if, like on the first example, if you have to. I fill in the blank places with 0. And now I just start crunching the numbers like I would normally do. 4 subtract 0 is 4. 2 subtract 8 is, don't say 6. That's what 8 subtract 2 is. We borrow. We borrow from the 3. We're borrowing 1 from the 3. And what's 3 take away 1? Well, that's 2. I read this now as 12. What's 12 take away 8? 4. And what's 2 take away 2? 0. All right, so I got 3 and 24/100, subtract 2 and 8/10, and I get 0 and 44/100. All right, guys, so that's a quick overview of what we did with decimals this chapter. If you need a more in-depth review, I encourage you to go to the school YouTube page and rewatch all of the videos labeled decimal. There should be about 15 of them, and that will give you a very good, thorough review.